Well, Ari, thanks so much for taking time to connect with us today. It's great to be with you.
You as well. I'm super excited.
Yeah. Hey, before we dive into kind of your own personal backstory, I want to hear right from the beginning about yoga. How has yoga changed your life?
That is the biggest blessing I've ever experienced, honestly. So I started practicing in 2001. I was I think, like a sophomore in college. And I was invited to a class and it was like a hard class. And I looked all around me and people were doing headstands. They're like putting their forehead on their shins. And mind you, I was always athletic, but I was not flexible. And or had I ever done anything that was mindful? I grew up Catholic school, but then I grew up in Miami, so there was a lot of opportunity to play. And I remember going to that first class. I was living in South Beach at that moment, which was the heyday of Miami Beach. And man, there were tears, there was frustration, there was anger, very little peace in that first class, but just the awareness, right, of seeing the of seeing these things that I had never really paid attention to. So yoga, that first class was a avalanche into awareness. And then I immediately kept going back. I bought like the 3-month pack for like $90. It was wonderful. And I was religious because I'm a bit of a type A personality. So the challenge of doing the poses that other people were doing was quite like it pushed me a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember being so like angry. There was just so much anger that I was like, why can't I do these things? It was frustration more than anger. Now that I look back. And then little by little, the subtleties of the practice started coming in and the lifestyle. And now I look back, over 20 plus years later. And, I'm like, thank God for yoga because I stopped really drinking. I, adopted a much healthier nutrition. My friendships changed from like my party friends to my yoga friends. I started reading spiritual books. I started chanting because I had a huge disassociation from the Catholic religion. I left the church when I was like 14. And even though I still went to like Catholic high school, I was really disconnected from that dogma.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of floating aimlessly. My dad's atheist. So I had other than this religion that I had pushed away, I was floating. And this brought a reconnection to spirit, to universe, to God, whether it was Hindu or more new agey, there was something.
Mm-hmm.
And then all that beauty, that quiet, there was a lot of quiet in my mind. And in my soul, there was that, from the mud, you can't find your diamond ring. Well, I was able to find my diamond ring.
Beautiful. At what point in your journey did you begin to realize, okay, I don't want to just experience this for myself, but I want to begin to lead others and help others in their own journey? How did that come about for you?
I was forced into it. So in 2005, I get a call from my teacher at that time. I hadn't done a teacher training, but I was a dedicated, like when I say dedicated student, I was like reading Sanskrit in my bathroom, going to every workshop that existed,
Wow.
following her around because I was so enamored at this practice and what it had done for me. And she calls me and she's like, "Hey, Adi, are you coming to the 6 o'clock class?" I was like, "Of course." She's like, "Well, you're teaching it because I don't feel well." Like that. And I was like, "What?" I'm sorry. Say what? And she's like, "You got it. You're good. You just do the practice, lead as if you were practicing." And I showed up to a full class because my teacher was very popular. A full class. It was Ashtanga yoga. And I led primary series using Sanskrit, counting in Sanskrit, the whole shebang. And then I remember a few people came up to me after class, but in specific, this one gentleman who was, floating into handstand and doing all these like advanced poses during practice. And he was like, wow, that was wonderful. How long have you been teaching? And I was like, 90 minutes. And now, 20 years later, he had been already a yoga teacher for like a decade. So I always go back to that story and I'm like, Greg, you called me out that one day, but it really solidified my confidence that I could show up and lead.
It's so beautiful. So beautiful. And now you've gone on to not only be a leader locally, but you have developed really an influence on a much larger scale. How did that unfold for you? Because I think people would find that fascinating. Oftentimes people, when you just get started, you go, okay, well, I have a vision to make a big impact, but I'm just like taking my teacher training, or I'm just starting to teach at this local studio once or twice a week. How did that kind of slowly unfold for you? I think people would find that fascinating.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So, when I started teaching, I was 25. Let's be real. At 25, I wasn't thinking of like grandeur and impacting. That was the last thing. I was like, oh, this is something I love to do. It's perfect for I worked in advertising at that time. It's perfect for the weekends. And then about a year later, I took a teacher training called in the Acro Yoga modality. And it was brand new. And it was
Can you explain what that is for if somebody
yes.
doesn't happen to know what that is?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So Acro Yoga is partner-based yoga, and where one person is the base and the other person's like hanging over their legs. So there's a traditional yoga, there's partner yoga, and then there's the acrobatics and the therapeutics around it. So it's a very specific modality. And I fell in love with this practice, and I took teacher training, and I was one of the first teachers in the world with Acro. And I think that was what opened my mind, because I was not only giving the possibility to be one of the leaders in the industry, but I was invited to teach in like Holland, Germany, France, South Africa, name it. My first retreat that I co-led at my first retreat with my friend Laura, and we had like 30 people that all wanted to come and learn acro. It was like the thing. And because it was so foundational still with traditional yoga, but it broke the pattern. And I'm kind of that rebellious figure. I'm like the artist in my family versus the economist. It felt really in alignment to who I was. And because my number one value was freedom, I saw this as a doorway to let me work and travel. I was on planes like left and right, guiding or leaving Miami, going to other cities. So I realized the impact that I was having because I was able to step into these big conferences and be called upon. And it was really what actually turned on I was always a straight A student, but I would, kind of do it in the background. Like I was never showy about it. And this really pushed my edge because it's such a visual practice.
Mm.
And people were like, oh, do you want to perform? And I was like, perform? I was like, no one look at me. Like, no one needs to look at me. So it was really, I always tell people now that I coach, I'm a business coach for people. I'm like, find that one thing that you want to be known for. Mm. And how can you show up as a leader within that one thing? Because yes, you might love yoga, but what about yoga? Like, is it the poses? Is it the arm balancing? Is it the energetics of it? Is it the chanting? Is it the mantra? Like, what is it that really lights you up, that if you did that one thing all day long, you wouldn't get tired and you would only be energized? So,
wonderful.
Yeah, that's a bit of my story.
Yeah. So beautiful. And so at some point you had the vision or dream to kind of create a gathering, an expo around this. And so you've created the Yoga Expo that has multiple locations. What's the story of how that came to your mind, the vision of this event?
Okay, so I will correct you. I am not the creator of the Yoga Expo. I ended up buying the Yoga Expo. And it was, again, at a, everything happens at pivotal moments of your life. But I had been a studio owner for about 6, 7 years here locally in Miami. And I was wanting to transition out of brick and mortar. And I had been teaching at the Yoga Expo for a couple of years. I was teaching Acro and I was doing like business of yoga talks. And one day out of the blue, the previous owner, Kyle, calls me up and he's like, "Hey, Ari, do you want to take over the Yoga Expo in Florida?" And I was like, again, like, what? Me? Okay. Because that's usually my answer to things. I'm just like, whatever, I'll jump out of the plane and figure out how I build a parachute on the way down. And so I started leading the Florida show while he ran the main brand, had Oregon, had Los Angeles. And it was super successful because I had already been teaching. I had built this massive community here in South Florida. This is also how I met Sandra, because she was leading her Holistic Life Expo. And, we were kind of doing these parallel things. And then a few years ago, we came together to really grow and take over the entire brand. So I can't say that I'm the creator of the Yoga Expo. I'm not that cool. But I definitely, and with Sandra's help, we've definitely grown it and given it a different feel. We're both females, we're moms, and we're both been living in Sandra was a holistic health coach for many years at martial arts, super spiritual, whereas the previous owner was more of a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what people say, like, man, the energy that you guys bring, the community, like the feel, the vibe. And honestly, we're so blessed to have built community with this show that is, I've gotten so many comments from people, like a woman not too long ago, she was like, that I went to your expo 6 years ago and I went to that one class where we did these very specific practices that I had never done before. And she's like, and I knew that I was going to be able to have a baby because of that one class. And boom, like 2 months later, she got pregnant. She's like, but I know it was your show. Do you know, like when somebody says that to you, the explosion of like emotion? I like just hugged her, like, I'm not a big crier, but like definitely had what I call inner tears. And I was just so like humbled.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so beautiful. You mentioned Sandra. And
Yeah.
so, what is it like to work with someone kind of in a partnership to put on such a big event like this? Um, what are the benefits of having a partner? What are the challenges of having a partner in something like this?
Okay. You can't just use the word partner. You have to use like superwoman. Like I'm blessed because Sandra is a super Wonder Woman. Like, she was like, you don't know how much I work. And I'm like, aha, you don't know how much I work. And then we're both like, oh my God, we're both like producers, right? So when I met Sandra, this is years ago before Expo, her energy was like so vibrant and she's got this like big smile and I'm short. I'm like 5'3" and Sandra's like, I don't know. I feel like she's 6 feet tall. She's not that tall, but like 5'8", 5'9". And so she's got this presence about her. And I was like, whoa, this lady's got some energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I decided to ask for support, because, I've been building my business coaching. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have like 4 different companies. So I was, pretty busy with my coaching and I knew that the expo needed more attention, right? And in business, there's 2 ways. You either hire people, so you need to raise capital to have people that work for you,
Mm-hmm.
or you decide to bring in, a partner. And I was leery of partnerships because I had had partnerships before that worked well until they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I was like, let me put this out into the universe. And, I put it on Facebook. because Facebook is a magical place. And she wrote me. She didn't just comment, like she wrote me. And then we started the conversation, and something just felt really, really easy.
Hmm.
She comes from a logistics and IT background, also super creative, and she's a Virgo. For those of you guys, when I say Virgo, you might be like, "Oh yeah, I know Virgos." So those, me knowing what I know about business is that whoever you bring into your sphere needs to be your opposite.
Hmm.
And I'm a Gemini, and like creative, I'm a bit scattered, and Sandra's like uber organized, very diligent, and she's excellent at building relationships and focusing on the sponsorships, which is exactly what I don't like to do. So, so I had a lot of clarity on the type of person that I wanted, on the tasks that they needed to be really good at, and it was just like, bing. And we're both like, I don't know. I think because we're moms, and she's a mom of three. I'm a mom of one, and like big 3 year big kids. I'm a mom of a little kid. Like there's always been this understanding that like we know we have each other's backs, and family comes first. So like when she's having stuff, I'm like, what do you need? How can I help you? And when I've been having, she's like, what do you need? How can I help you?
Hmm.
Um, so, she's smart, she's funny, we cuss, it's great.
What are some of the challenges, whether it's not necessarily been with Sandra, but in previous, partnership relationships that you've had, that people might need to be aware of if they're stepping into a potential partnership?
um, everybody's got a way of working and a personality, and you might agree with me, but as we get older, we become less flexible and less tolerant. Yeah, think of like the angry, older lady neighbor that's like, "Wah, wah, wah." And it's because that's in our constitution in general. We dry up as we get older, so there has to be an essence, and this really ties into leadership. Honestly, leadership, I think the best quality of a leader is to be flexible.
Hmm.
So when there's maybe a lack of flexibility, and there's a lot of you when something isn't working, you're gonna you're going to end up either having clashes and miscommunication versus evolution. So anybody that's bringing on a partnership, like I said, one, make sure it's your opposite, to a certain extent, meaning in your strengths based. Like I'm creative, I can, record podcasts and do lives all day. Like, there's a lot of things that I do, and I know exactly what my bottlenecks are, what my constraints are. So see if that person has your separate strengths. And that way, when you come together, you make one super person. Um, and then have systems, right? Like the moment you're piecemealing things together, and in the beginning this will happen, but the more you create systems and SOPs that you can follow, checklists, like those kinds of things that will help to make sure that things are moving forward, and that even in the meetings, in the communication, there's um, the way you talk to each other. I know Sandra and I are on like WhatsApp a lot, and sometimes in a text, you're like, hey, what was that? Right? Don't take anything personal. It's like the 4 agreements. Don't take anything personal. Like you don't know what that person, they might be like, running around, like doing something. So that's why it's like clarity, communication, trust. If there's no trust, like I know Sandra, and whatever she's doing, like I trust her to make a decision. I'm like, I don't even have to second guess you. And if I did, let's have a conversation around that. So I actually wrote a book called The Abundant Yogi. It's on Amazon. And I talk a lot about partnerships in that book, because there's like 90% of partnerships go wrong. Not wrong, but they break up, right? Doesn't mean wrong. They end up in a split. And to me, that's a staggering number. Nowadays we talk about like divorce, like over 50-60% of marriages end up in divorce. And I look at my husband, and I'm like, the way that we lead our relationship, it should never lead us to a divorce.
Mm.
Right? So it's like, can I have that sacred union within my business partner as well, and have the respect and have the loyalty and have the trust in order to move things forward versus letting personalities and I'm going to cuss, bullshit, get in the way. Sorry.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems like a high level of self-awareness and willingness to be aware of my own strengths and weaknesses coming into that type of relationship. It seems like both individuals, if it's going to be successful, both individuals need to have that ability to have that awareness, take responsibility, apologize, make amends,
Yes.
find a solution, and so forth.
Yes. And I love that you said take responsibility, because like I know there's so many balls that I've dropped, you know? And when you said that, I was like, yep, I took full responsibility. Like I totally dropped that ball. Like I forgot to add you on that document.
Hmm.
So sorry. I'm gonna make up, but then you rectify it.
Hmm.
And being humble, and grateful. Like all those qualities. And knowing also that if something doesn't work, have an exit strategy.
Hmm. How do you go about making decisions for the direction or trajectory of the Yoga Expo? If, say, one person wants to, go this direction, the other person wants something kind of significantly different. How do you navigate that?
Mm, luckily, we haven't had too many of those moments. But I'll say that one, I don't like conflict. And I'm not married. Like, if, for example, Sandra wanted to create a new initiative that I wasn't very excited about, I would be like, create the initiative and, keep most of the revenue from it and give a percentage back to the expo. Just don't make me work more. I don't have the bandwidth. Like, but if it's in alignment to our values, right? Like to our core values and to the mission and the vision of the company, um, go for it. Like, I know whatever you do it well. So why would this not work? Like we just introduced an influencer program, and that was Sandra's idea. And I'm like, that's amazing. How can I help? And hey, I don't know much about this industry. I'm willing to learn, but just, whatever happens, like, let's make sure it's beneficial for your extra work as well.
Hmm. So before we dive into some like specifics around the Yoga Expo, I want to hear a little bit more about your business coaching, because I know that's a big part of your life as well. What is that? What's the name of that business? What does that involve? How could people benefit from that?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So what I do is that I run um, skill-based workshops throughout the year. So like email marketing, funnel building, launching, and I give people these tools to, learn a specific skill set that they're going to need to move forward, mainly on marketing and sales, social media. So I have a lot of courses that people can buy. And then I have my mastermind, like big coaching program called the Evolved Digital CEO. And in that container, there's very specific coursework that they can, be self-didacted upon. But then there's that, like, I look at from an objective experience based, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years. Um, and the main goal is to remove obstacles from your path, right? So I call myself like a consultant problem solver. So it's like, how do I help you do the thing that you want to do? So if your goal is to launch an online course, well, I will help you navigate all of the steps that are needed, from visibility to sales to scalability to software, technology, mindset. Um, and that's unique to that goal. So I work with people privately and then within a group container as well. And then I also have almost like a agency side to it. And since I've been working in the marketing and creative field for so long, where we do full done for you services. So I'll help people launch the business. I call it like, your business in a box, from website, brand, all the way to launch to running ads. So I always tell people, like, whatever it is that wherever you're stuck, like, just connect with me, mainly on Instagram is the best place. And like, let's talk, because maybe it's, hey, take my $27 course. This is a great place to start. Or maybe you're ready to start launching ads and, reaching a bigger audience.
Hmm.
Um, we're all at different places. So it's like, there's no cookie cutter business strategy. I hate it when people are like, this is the one thing you need to do. That is one thing you could do, but does that make sense for where you're at right now?
Hmm.
Um,
And what's the website and Instagram for this particular offering that you have?
yeah. So my Instagram is ari.biz.coach. And then my website is bizyogi.co.
Great. So we'll obviously put all that in the show notes. I want to dive into the Yoga Expo
Yes.
for a few minutes. What would you say your vision is for the Yoga Expo? And I know you've got an event coming up in Los Angeles that we're excited to participate in, and you've got other events that are happening across the
Yeah,
nation that are starting to kind of unfold. But what's the vision of the Yoga Expo, and how does that vision get expressed through the actual events?
of course. I mean, our motto is, a celebration of consciousness. So if we really look at that, how are we bringing people together um, in our events that are going to give them new experiences, whether it's by meeting a new teacher, whether it's by meeting a new brand, right? Listening to a lecture that was, that could be, like I said, life changing. Um, so it really is to celebrate the consciousness and the community and the strength that living as a wellness um, practitioner, right, is going to do for your life. So we're all about that ripple effect. If you can get, if you meet that like one person at the show, or you sign up for that one retreat at the show, that is going to take you to that next level, for, to put it in plain words. That's our mission, right? Um, but also our mission is to highlight local, like the not famous teachers and presenters, because when I was more in the teaching world, I would go teach at the Yoga Journal conference, right? But I taught like the little outside class. I wasn't the headline presenters. There was 5 or 6, and you would see these 5 or 6 people moving from conference to conference. Like if you weren't on the cover of a magazine, or you hadn't, right? Like it was like the famous teachers club. And so I think that the expo kind of broke a bit of that pattern. And, for example, my client and friend Ellen been teaching for over 30 years. But, she was never going to be a yoga journal teacher. So we really highlight the local community and encourage, studio owners, these hidden gems to showcase themselves and give their gifts while also receiving potential clients, because a lot of our participants are local. Like LA, we're going to get a ton of LA people. So if you're a studio owner in LA, or you're a teacher that does workshops and is leading, then doesn't it make sense to exhibit your business and teach at my show? Absolutely. So we cater also a lot of the professionals to help them build a bigger business. And in the back end, Sandra and I do a lot to support them. So like we'll do a webinar to all our presenters before, to all our exhibitors, how to maximize, because both of us come from like a marketing and sales background.
Hmm. Hmm. So I walk in the front door of the Yoga Expo. This particular event that's coming up in Los Angeles, it's in Pasadena.
Yeah.
I walk in the front door. What do I see? What do I experience? What do you want me to feel?
You will probably see my face. No, but you're going to get welcomed, by our amazing volunteers. Like big up to our volunteers. Like we love you so much. Um, and then you get to pick one out of like 7 classes that you could take every hour on the hour. So it's like a poo-poo platter of yoga, of lectures, sound bath, meditation. You could go shopping into the marketplace, listen to a live band like Kirtan, or you can, we have a DJ Boomy coming into LA. So it's really like pick your own day. And before that, we do our best. So if you guys are getting tickets, maybe don't wait till the day of so you can plan your day, because we have the full schedule on the website. Like David's going to be doing live podcasts. Like we really curate the marketplace so that people can, connect and sit in and get a full sound bath. We have like a whole spa basically in there. We go above and beyond to curate the day so that there's something different happening in every room. And also ask people, because we don't, we have the ticket is, $65. Whereas some of these bigger shows is like $400 for a 2-day ticket. It's first come, first serve. So plan your day. I do this in business coaching too. I'm like, you got a plan so that you know what you're going to do. And you know that if you really want to go see, that one teacher who's going to do the Kundalini thing, like show up at that door and wait a few minutes. And also know that if you don't get in, there's going to be another amazing class like right next door or at the next hour. And you can, like I said, like go chill on we have like a bed system coming in, like go sleep for, I don't know, 30 minutes.
So there's a lot of things to do: classes, music,
Everything.
live podcast interviews, the marketplace, lots of businesses
Yeah.
showcasing conscious products and brands. If a
Yeah.
local teacher or business wants to get involved in terms of either leading classes or being involved in the exhibit space, how could they get involved?
Absolutely. So everybody, we invite them to first check out our website, which is theyogaexpo.org. Second, our Instagram, which is Yoga Expo World. If you're interested in exhibiting, talk to Sandra at theyogaexpo.co. And if you're interested in presenting, come talk to me. Really, we have a form on the website where you apply. And, like, what do I look for in a teacher? Professional, experienced, are my like 2 magical words. Because if I go look on your website, this is now me coming as a business coach, right? If I look at your application and there's no website, there's maybe no YouTube channel, your Instagram is full of like your dog and, your baby, and there's nothing I can refer back to. You have an email list of like 50 people, but you have 25 years of experience. Most likely, I won't accept you because there's the foundational things that are missing, which is a, professional business. And if you have both, then you have a much higher likelihood. I also tell people, like, I don't know, if I want to get a job, what do I do? Who do I connect? Right? Write me on Instagram. Like, go above and beyond. Schedule a call with me. Show up to one of my webinars. Like, do the due diligence to. I get, I don't know, 20 applications a week for teaching. So how do you stand out?
Stand out.
Right.
You
How
gotta
do you stand
stand out.
out?
Yep.
And then we always, give preference to people who are exhibiting. If you're
Mhm.
really serious about growing your business, you're going to get a stand, a booth. We're going to give you preference because we know you're committed to showing up at 120%. And our participants are going to know that that you have that level of energy and that you're like so committed in helping them as well, right?
Mhm.
So it's just full circle.
Mhm.
So thank you for asking. That was a great question.
Yeah. So talk to me about Los Angeles. Let's hear the dates of that. You
Yeah.
have upcoming events.
Mhm.
What's the future of Yoga Expo as
Yeah.
well? So walk us through kind of some of these details.
So Los Angeles is going to be January 11th. So 111. We all love those numbers. So, it's going to be amazing. And then we have Fort Lauderdale, May 3rd of 2025. And we're also looking at Chicago and Arizona for some other dates, March and July of next year as well. And we are putting together a virtual show for those who can't. We did that during the pandemic and they were wildly successful. So we're very excited to bring that in. Don't ask me when it is, but it'll happen. The in-person shows take up a lot of our energy. So, and we have this one in less than 2 months. So, um, we wanna grow. I'm gonna say like we want to hit Europe, Japan. Like Yoga Expo wants to be a force of community building through yoga. You know what I mean? Like it really is. And because I think our our business model caters to those local um, businesses. Not that we don't bring in like national sponsors, but you know what I mean? Like there's that like vibe, like again, that like warm, fuzzy, lovey energy, where we really bring people together. Like that's our thing. It's like come together. Like let's connect. How do we cooperate to keep doing good things? And that's the cool thing about our show. Like for example, when I have all the participants in my WhatsApp group, like I'm like, hey guys, introduce each other, get to meet each other. Like maybe there's something that you could build together that goes beyond the expo, because you never know, you might be one connection away from your big dream coming true.
Hmm. Love that. All right. So we've got Los Angeles coming up. We've got Fort Lauderdale coming up. And if somebody was interested in maybe even like somehow luring you into their city like, would you be open to that? Like maybe like, hey, come to our city somehow?
Potentially. We never say no, because again, you might be one conversation away from your big dream.
Yeah.
It's like the stars need to, like everything needs to align.
Mm-hmm.
But like we were potentially doing something in New Jersey, and it didn't come through. But like we want to do New Jersey, right? New York, New Jersey, Northeast, and yeah, like we're always open. Well, it's still this year, but it's still 2024. The last show we had a few people that reached out to us, and Sandra and I, for whatever reason, this year was a bit challenging in terms of like life.
Mm-hmm.
Like with her son, like her family, she had to be like fully immersed in the family. And my daughter was going through developmental, like she's 4, so like she's building her whole world. And we were having some relationship issues, which now I'm going to say, thank God we've gone through the next stage. She's almost 5, and like things changing your brain. Um, and I know some people like had reached out to us, and we probably didn't take that conversation further. But now I think we also have better systems, and we have more team members, right? Because we can't grow with just us two. So now we've brought in some amazing people to support us on admin and communication. So I think next year, in general, I have like this spidey sense that 2025 has like a different kind, like renewed energy. In general, there was a white rabbit like in front of my house the other day, and I don't know, there's no rabbits in Miami, guys. So I was like, that's a sign.
The
Something
white
earth's
rabbit.
happening. Yep. I was like, take me down the rabbit hole. Come on, let's go.
Love it.
So yeah, that was a great question. And we're always open. We love partnering with like project-based partnerships. So for example, if we wanted to do a yoga expo and a company, so that like, we unite and conquer, then to me, those are the best types of relationships.
Wonderful. All right. TheYogaExpo.org. You can
Yeah.
get tickets for the upcoming Los Angeles show, January 11th, 2025, as well as Fort Lauderdale. And then for Instagram, Yoga Expo World.
Yes.
And of course, remind us your personal business's website.
Yes. Ari.biz.coach is Instagram, and then bizyogi.co is my website.
Great. We'll have all of that in the show notes as well. So you can swipe up on your phone and click those links. Adi, thank you so much for taking time and just sharing your heart and your wisdom. I'm so excited to be a part of the Yoga Expo here in
I
January,
know we're going to have some
and it's going to be
awesome
good.
some awesome interviews. I'm so excited that you're leading this. So like, thank you for being one of our media sponsors and partners. Like, we're beyond thrilled. And I'm like so interested in learning about, you have like all this information in your brain from media and being a producer. I'm like, feed me. So I'm super honored to be interviewed by you. Thank you.